Hi, shalom, shalom. Welcome once again to
Shalom.
our broadcast of midweek MIDrash, right in the middle of the week. Midweek, we are celebrating the Camel Hump Day, and
Yes.
in the best way that we can with the word of Yah, the word of our Most High, wonderful
Amen.
Creator. And we welcome you once again. I pray that you've been with us and that you've been finding this helpful to you. And let me just go and double check on what this is looking like. But again, we thank
I'm
you and we pray
checking
that
as well.
you've been watching with us the past year and a half, maybe. We've been doing this. We meet on Wednesday evenings at 7:30 for roughly an hour, and then we also meet on Shabbat on our Shabbat service. And Hadassah, shalom, shalom to you.
Wow. Hi,
And
Hadassah. Welcome.
okay, just looking at that. And there we are. Number 68. That's excellent. That's excellent. So here we are. And we've been blessed enough to cover quite a few interesting portions of Scripture. We had Psalm 118, Psalm 139, the Isaiah um, suffering servant portions. And we are also now in the benediction, and that is what we are doing. Okay, what's going on there? Okie dokie. And so it's the Aaronic benediction, but we see key pivotal sections with regards to blessing. What is blessing? What does it mean to be blessing? What is the name? What is the name? Why is the importance of the name? And
Yes.
so it's not just reading these three verses from the book of Numbers, Bamidbar in the wilderness, not just reading those three verses, but it is understanding the whole purpose of the blessing, that his name would be upon us. And this comes where a lot of trust is involved. Shalom, William.
Yes.
Um, so we had a little bit of an issue last week with regards to our gadgets here, but I think we're good to go. And Herman is straining at the bit to get both the review and some new portions to share tonight as well. So if he plays his cards right, you won't be seeing or hearing much of me tonight, which is maybe a blessing. And it's now we're going to be each getting a shot, but we really want to let Herman do. He's got these wonderful slides giving us a lot of wonderful, deep information, and
Yes.
that's what we are students. Midweek MIDrash. A drash. What is a drash? It is an allegoric or narrative to illustrate deeper principles. The study. It's an exegesis. It's an exposition. So that's all the things that a MIDrash represents. The drash, and we have scriptures that are peshat, which is plain to understand, literal sense of the text. We have the remets, which hints at a truth that's not conveyed by the peshat. So it's prophetic truth that's there. And then the fourth is the sod, which is mystery, secret, revealed by gematria, which is through numbers and through different words being used. Okay, scripture that reveals the meaning of another scripture previously hidden to us, the Peshat. So those are the four methods of biblical exposition, and we've been blessed to have this opportunity to come before you and allow the eternal Yah to speak through us, to speak to us, and that we're all here to encourage each other, and we're grateful for you once again
Yes.
joining us. We have on the phone, our conference call, we have Patricia and Gilbert, and we have our brother Herman right here with us side by side. And we have our support teams here behind us,
Amen.
aka our Isha and our Isha. We have wonderful ladies watching out for us, making sure we don't mess up, and we're somewhat color coordinated today. I happen to mention that we're sort of Blues Brothers tonight, but
Yes.
but anywho, so we say Shalom to you. Herman, would you like to say an opening greeting?
Yeah, well, hello to everyone. And William, welcome. Hadassah, welcome. I'm looking forward to sharing the material that I was unable to share last week. I'm excited about it. And so we're going to be plugging along this beautiful section of scripture, the Aaronic benediction. So I'm really excited.
Amen. Toda rabah. Okay, Brother Gilbert, if you would do us the honors of opening in prayer for us.
Yes, sir.
Amen.
Eternal and everlasting Father, once more we give you thanks and praise for being in your presence this evening for another presentation of your word from the book of Numbers. Thine is your greatness, your power, and your majesty. The heavens and the earth is thine. We all give you thanks and praise in your glorious and precious name. Amen.
Amen. Toda rabah. Thank you muchly. And Herman, I turn it over to you.
Yes.
Would you like to start with the review?
Well,
And
Bob, yeah, I didn't inform you of this, but in the interest of time, since I do have a lot of material that I would like to cover, I really would like to bypass the review and just get right into today's presentation. If that's okay with you. Okay?
Sure.
Okay, fantastic. So let's we'll work on the PowerPoint now. Give me a moment. Okay.
Here we go. Today's study.
All righty. Okay, folks. So I believe that this will be the last introductory material that I would have to present. And it's very possible that next week we will get into the actual text. So today's study. Alrighty, so I have a question. I want to start it off with a question. When you're reading the Bible in Hebrew, have you ever wondered what the Samic and the Pei stand for at the end of certain verses? Right? You have your printed edition, and you've probably come across that, and you've wondered. Sometimes there may be 3 Samics or 3 Peis. So that's the question I want to start off with today. All right, these symbols are present in and around the Birkat Kohanim. Okay, and I'm bringing this up because as I said, many people, and there was a time that I too wondered. I said, what does it stand for? I see it here, I see it in this page, I see it in this passage, and I had no idea. So I want to share with you because I'm pretty sure that many of you wonder the same thing. So let's take a look at this. Right? Here we have the next slide here. We have an image of a printed edition. And just going to give you a moment. Bob, I changed the slide, the next slide. Do you see it there?
Yes, that's the blue one right in the middle.
Yeah, the blue. Fantastic. So here we have, beginning in Numbers chapter 6, verse 20, and you come to the end of verse 21, and there is a pay. Right? Now, verses 22 and verses 23 are the introductory verses to the Birkat Kohanim. And in between, you see a Samic in between verses 24 and 25. You will see another Samic here, and so on. Right? And since these symbols are in our passage, I wanted to share with the audience what this stands for. Right? So now, as we go on to the next slide here, I'll give you a moment. What I would like to talk about today is the layout of the text in the printed editions in books, which have these symbols, the Samic and the Pei. Right? And I want to compare the printed editions with the manuscripts, because what the printed editions are doing is that they're mimicking, or they are trying to communicate to the Hebrew reader what the manuscripts, what is in the manuscript. And you'll see what I mean. I also want to talk about patterns and structures and numbers related with the Birkat Kohanim. And Bob, I know that you touched on a lot of this material, or some of it anyway, with some of the numbers, but I will review it. It will be a good review for some of the material that you touched on last week.
Mm-hmm.
So regarding the structure and the numbers, what I want to do is that I want to talk about the preface, the two verses that come before the blessing, which are verses 22 and 23. Then I want to talk about the bracketing of the blessing, which are verses 22, 23, and verse 27. I have these three dots here representing the three verses of the actual Aaronic benediction. So this is what brackets 22, 23, and 27 brackets the blessing. And I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk about the structure of the blessing itself, which are the three verses in 24 and 26. And then I like to close off with the culminating words. And we're going to see some structure and some numbers in verse 27. So that's what I would like to talk about today. I hope I have enough time to cover all that material. But I'm not going to rush it. Okay. I really don't want to rush it.
No.
Well, yeah. So the book that I use to copy the printed text is from the Sonsino Chumash. Okay, so that's the printed text that you're going to see from the Sonsino library of the Old Testament. This is the Chumash, which are the 5 books, the Torah. Now, going on to the next slide here, as I said before earlier, this, give you a moment, this, what we see here is a photocopy of the pages from the Sonsina printed edition. And as I said here is the end of the section where it talks about the Nazarite. Because remember, before the pericope, before the section of the Aaronic benediction, the context talks about the Nazarite. And here is the last verse, verse 21, and you have this pay. And then, as I said, we have the beginning of the Birkat in verses 22 and on. And here are the symbols, as I said. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next slide here to give you an idea of why these symbols are in the printed edition. So moving on to the next slide, what we have here on the right is a copy of a manuscript. And of course, I zoomed in to the Aaronic benediction, but if you can notice on the very top, you notice the very end of verse 21, you'll see that the line ends and there is nothing else on that line. That is reflected in the printed edition by the pei, the petucha, the pei. And I'll get a little more into the meaning of those words. And then in the manuscripts, you'll see that as the blessing begins, Yivarechecha Yahweh vayishmerecha, you're going to see that there is a gap here between verses 23 and 24, where the actual blessing begins. And this gap here is reflected by the samech in the printed editions. Are you following, Bob?
Yep.
Okay. So as verse 24 ends and the beginning of verse 25, there is another gap, and the text continues on the same line. So when you're reading the printed edition and you come across a samech in the printed edition, keep in mind that what that samech reflects is a gap in the manuscript. Okay, and we see it there. We see the gaps there. Now, with the Sonsino here at the end of verse 27, there is a samech, but there are manuscripts. Okay, so the samech represents that the text continues on the same line, but there are manuscripts where at the end of verse 27, as opposed to a samech, there is a pei, because then the text begins on the other line, on the following line. So let's talk a little bit about these symbols and what they mean. Okay? As I said, the printed editions in the Hebrew, what they seek to preserve the manuscript format. by adding these symbols to the text. Now, the Samic stands for setuma, and that means closed or blocked, because there is a gap in the text, but the text continues on the same line. So that's what the Samic stands for, setuma, where the text is closed or blocked, and hence a closed section of the text. However, whereas the Pei stands for petucha, which means open, and here is where you have the line that's totally open, and then the text begins on the following line. So petucha means open, hence an open section of the text. And that's what those words mean and the symbols, okay? As I said, some manuscripts will have a Samic at the end of verse 27, whereas other manuscripts will have a Pei, because every manuscript is slightly different, will have a Pei at the end of verse 27. Here we have an example of the same thing, but I wanted to show you. Here is an example in the gray, the following slide. On the gray, Bob, do you see the gray there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, the gray on the right is an example of a manuscript that has the vocalization, the vowels, and the cantillations. This is a manuscript, but notice that at the end of verse 27, it's open. So there would be a Pei here. There would be a Pei, whereas in the Sonsino, there's a Samech. Okay, so the point that I wanted to make here is that in some manuscripts, at the end of verse 27 of that section, it will be opened. It will be a Pei for Petucha. In this next slide here, I have a copy, an image of another manuscript with verse 27. I believe you'll see it now on your screen, where verse 27 here is closed. Okay, so verse 27. Hey, oh, by the way, you see here verse 21 up on top where it's open. So the Pei, there would be in the printed editions, there would be a Pei here reflecting the opening, and then Samic, 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 and here there's a Samic as well, because in this manuscript, the text continues on the same line. So here's the bottom line. When you're reading a printed edition and you come across, this is the bottom line here, when you're reading a printed edition and you see a Samic, a setuma, keep in mind that that represents a spacing in the manuscript with the text continuing on the same line. But when you see a Pei, that represents that there is an opening and the text continues on the following line in the manuscript. Now, shifting gears. Now, Bob, is there anything that you'd like to comment or any questions regarding the setuma and the petucha, the Samic and the Pei?
Well, I don't know if you were planning on talking about the Samech as far as the numeric value and things like that. Were you going to touch on that?
Yes, I am going to. Yes. Yes. You did touch on some of that last week, but I am going to touch on that. And of course, okay, feel free to jump in. Now, so let's shift gears and let's talk about the patterns, structures, and the numbers. Now, here's the first one. When we arrange verse 23, right? I'm arranging it. When we arrange verse 23 by its disjunctive accents, remember that the disjunctive accents are the sakev katon, which are the two dots on top of a letter. That's usually reflected by a comma in English sometimes. The other disjunctive accent will be an athnak, which is like a little upward arrow, and the siluk. These are the main disjunctive accents. So if I arrange the text by the disjunctive accent, what we're going to see is a very beautiful aesthetic pattern to the eye. And I'm just going to give you a moment here. I'm switching to the next slide, and I want you to see this. Take a look at that here. Um, this is what I mean by the aesthetic pattern. This is verse 23, of course. And here at the end of, not at the end, but here we have the Aaronic here, which would be the grammatical middle of the verse, not the numerical middle, because as in this case, you have a bunch of words. Here's the middle, and here you have the Aaronic, which separates the verse, the grammatical middle. And here we have two words after the Aaronic. So take a look at this pattern here. After the Aaronic in verse 23, you have two words, and then the three words, the five words, the seven words, and so on. And that creates a beautiful pattern. Now, the reason why I highlighted the pay here is because apparently the editors of the Bible Work program, because I'm getting this from Bible Works, that's the program that I use, apparently the editors are working with a manuscript that has a petucha at the end of verse 27. Right? So I think this is beautiful on how this pattern develops here. Now, moving on to the next one, we know that the Birkat Kohanim is composed of 6 blessings, right? These are the 6 blessings, that a person would be blessed, that he would be protected, that he would be illuminated, or that she, of course, that he would be graced, favored, and that he would be peaceful, right? So these are the 6 blessings of the actual Birkat HaKohanim. Now, these 6 blessings are prefaced in verses 22 and 23 with 6 verbs. And I'm just going to give you a moment here so that you can see what I'm talking about. I have it color-coded. The 6 blessings are prefaced with 6 verbs. And here we have them in English. So we have, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying. So here we have one in yellow and one in green. Speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying. Right? And then in this way you shall bless the children of Israel, you shall say. So notice the verbs here, the 6 verbs that preface the 6 blessings. You have spoke, speak, and you shall bless. And this corresponds here, pardon, to the yellow in Hebrew. All right? Vayedaber, daber, and te varachu. So these are the verbs, and then you have Lemor, and Amor. Now, the interesting thing that I found about this is that there is a pattern in the verbs. Not only do you have this beautiful pattern in the beginning and in the end of the verses, but there's a pattern in that. And let me go to the next slide, because the next slide has this. What we see, not only do we see, let me just take a moment here. Okay, here we go. Not only do we see the verbs spread out evenly, so to speak, but the verbs here, the yellow ones, are all PLs, PL verb stems, whereas all of the greens are in the Cal stem. Okay. Now, they are slightly different because this would be third person, masculine singular PL. This one here, daber, is in the imperative, is a command form in the PL stem. And this one here is in the second person plural PL. All right, so you have the tau here for the second person, and then you have the shurek, indicating the plural. So although they're slightly different forms in person and number, they're all PL. Now, regarding the other verbs, which are in the Cal, this would be a infinitive, a Cal infinitive, a construct, infinitive construct. That's what I wanted to get. This is an infinitive construct because you have the lamed preposition, infinitive construct, and the infinitive absolute, but they're all in the cal. So I found that very interesting, this pattern. Okay, Bob, is there anything you'd like to share or any questions before I move on to the next slide?
No, I think you got some momentum going there. Let's keep going.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to go on to the next slide now, and what we're going to see in the middle of these 6 verbs, in the middle of the 6 verbs, which I have here in blue, is the chain of command. And I also found this quite beautiful, quite beautiful. And we're just in the preface, folks. We're not in the actual blessing itself. We're only in the preface, which is verses 22 and 23. And what I have here in the blue is what I call the chain of command. Yahweh speaks to Moses. Moses is to speak to Aaron and to Aaron's sons. And then the priests, Aaron and his sons, are to then invoke the blessing upon the children of Israel. So this is the chain of command, and it takes center stage, with Yahweh taking center stage here, right? As I said, Yahweh to Moses, Moses to Aaron and his sons, Aaron and his sons, the priests, to the children of Israel. And that's the chain of command, which is structured beautifully in between those 6 verbs. I think that's beautiful. Now, this next slide here is going to get a little more complex. And I'm going to take it slow on this one because I really want you to appreciate the beauty, because, we look at this, and of course, we look at it as a serious text where the Eternal One is commanding Moses, look, tell Aaron to do this, and it's very serious. But within the seriousness of the text, there is an absolute beauty which I want to share with you because I look for these things when I'm studying the Bible. And although we don't consider this poetry, there is a lot of poetic structure here, as I have shared, and as I'm going to share here. Alrighty? So to start off, these dots here represent the actual blessing, the 3 words, the 5 words, and the 7 words. So that's what those dots represent. So what we're going to look at now is verse 23, section B and C, which is the last section of the verse, and then verse 27, because these are the sections that bracket the blessing. They bracket it before and after. So I'm going to read it first in the English so that you can get an idea, and I have it color coded. So you'll notice that the blue in English, the blue goes with the blue, because what we have here is an ABC, CBA structure that brackets the actual blessing. Right? It's an inversion, what's called a chiastic structure, a chiasm or chiasmus. It's worded differently in the literature. So you're going to notice the color coding. You shall bless parallels I will bless. And of course, in red, children of Israel parallels children of Israel. And then when it says, say to them that this is the way you're going to bless, say to them, that parallels, so they shall put my name. Now, on the surface, it doesn't sound like it parallels, but it does, because the manner in which the priests put or place the name, the eternal name on the people, is by saying it, by invoking it. So this is why I say that this phrase here, say, parallels put. So once again, what we have is an ABC, CBA structure. Okay, so for the Hebrew, we have the blue, ko, te, varachu, and then which thus you all shall bless, and that parallels va'ani a barachem. And this, by the way, this is emphatic here, because it's literally saying, and I will bless them. So it's emphatic. Of course, the English doesn't have the double I, but the Hebrew is emphatic with 2 I's. And once again, it says, and I will bless them. So it's emphatic. And then, of course, you have et b'nei Yisrael with al, upon or on Bnei Yisrael, and then Amor Lahem or Lamor Ahem. Sometimes in modern Hebrew the hey is silent. Say to them, and then that will correspond with Ve Sam'u et Sami or Smi in modern Hebrew. Okay, so I find this absolutely fascinating, beautiful, and I'm quite excited to share how the blessing is bracketed with this ABC CBA structure. Give you a moment here. Let the next slide come on. Now, continuing with the bracketing, verses 22, 23, and 27. Once again, the dots represent the actual blessing. If we disregard the makafs, remember that the makafs are that dash, which in English is something like a hyphen. If we disregard the makafs in verses 22, 23, and 27, and by the way, the manuscripts that were written before the Masoretes come on the scenes, they do not have makafs. They do not have vowel pointings. They do not have the cantillation marks. Okay, so those ancient manuscripts, not the medieval manuscripts of the Masoretes, but the ancient manuscripts do not have makafs. Okay, so if we disregard the makafs, the benediction itself is bracketed by 26 words, and I'm pretty sure you already know where I'm going with this, right? Because the number 26 is the numerical value of the divine name, the tetragrammaton, the 4 letters, the Yud Hey Waw Hey. And I find this beautiful. This is beautiful stuff. So we have bracketing, once again, bracketing the blessing. We have 18 words if we disregard the makafs, which is the case in the ancient manuscripts. And we have 8 words bracketing the blessing. I think that's pretty cool. Number 26 for the divine name.
Amen.
I think that's pretty cool. Now, the culminating verse, the last verse, before I actually get into the blessing itself, the culminating verse. If we disregard the makaf in verse 27, we have 8 words, as I said earlier, right? And remember that the number 8 is the number of new beginnings. And if you would remember that I shared in the previous weeks that the Birkat Kohanim, when you read the narrative in the book of Numbers, the Birkat Kohanim was given before the journey, okay? Before they set off leaving Mount Sinai. So the Birkat Kohanim was the blessing before the journey being a new beginning for Israel as she departs from Sinai. And this is how the Aaronic benediction ends with 8 words in that section. 8 for new beginnings. And Israel would have a new beginning. Alrighty, so now the actual blessing. Verses 24, 25, and 26. Got a lot of nice juicy stuff here, which I really delighted in as I was studying this. I'm telling you, I was like a kid in a candy store as I was analyzing this and seeing it. I was going, wow, man, this is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. All right. So, as Bob said last week, there is an arrangement of 3 words, 5 words, and 7 words forming a staircase structure. We see that. And what we have are increments of 2 words per line. And Bob, you also shared that the benediction contains 15 letters, right? And keep that number in mind, 15 letters. 20 letters and 25 letters with increments of 5 letters per line. But keep that number 15 in mind, okay? So this is another structure within the blessing itself. 357, I call it the spiritual 357 Magnum. I don't know if people are not into firearms, but that's what I call this, the spiritual 357 Magnum. Alrighty, moving on to the next slide. Now, Um, let's see, the Samic. Let's see how did I word this? Samic is the 15th. Oh yeah, this is how I worded. And Bob, you shared on this last week as well, right?
Yeah.
Right. The Samic is the 15th letter of the alphabet, and the blessing has 15 words. Remember that in the previous slide I talked about the letters, right? The letters. 15 letters, 20 letters, 25 letters. But now I'm focusing on the words. So the Samic is the 15th letter, and the blessing has 15 words. And also the Samic has a numerical value of 60, right? The blessing having 60 letters. And here we have the same thing. So what I got from that, 3, 5, 7, 15, 20, and 25, what I got from that is that it reveals Yahweh's desire to increase his blessing over his covenant people, because there is an increase in words and in letters. So that's what I got from that. That is his desire to increasingly bless us. Okay, continuing on with the blessing. In the past, let's see if you have the slide there. Give you a moment. I'll give you a moment. Okay. In the past, you have heard me speak about the pasuk, which are these bars that are added to the text. And of course, they have grammatical meaning for a pause. And of course, when the text is chanted, it also has a meaning as well. Okay, there's a purpose for that. Alrighty, so the two pasuks that we have in the actual blessing evenly divides the 15 words of the benediction into sections of 5, 5, and 5. Right? We have 15 words, and the pasuks divide the actual blessing into 5, right? And for just so I can show you, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pasuk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pasuk, and then the rest of the 5. And of course, there are 15 words, and the number 15 is the numerical value for Yah, for the abbreviated form of the eternal name. So the bracketing, what I find beautiful about this is that the bracketing communicates the 26, right, which is the eternal name, the 4 letters. But the actual blessing itself also has hinted within it the 15, which is the numerical value of the shortened form. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool too. Okay, continuing on with the blessing. Let's give you a moment there. Continuing with the blessing here. The 6 verbs of the blessing, not the verbs of the preface, not the verbs of the preface, but the verbs of the blessing itself. All 6 verbs begin with a yud, and I have them highlighted here in yellow. Okay, and of course the purpose of the yud is that it's the third person masculine singular prefix. It's a prefix, and that refers to Yahweh, to the Eternal One. Okay, so if we were to read this literally, it would be read like this: May He bless you, Yahweh, right? And may He guard you. And then, of course, may He cause His light. May He cause His light. Yahweh, may He, Yahweh, cause His light and His face to shine upon you, and so on. So when you see this yud prefix before a verb, it refers to the third person masculine singular, and it's referring to the eternal. And as you can see here in blue, the eternal is highlighted in blue because we have the divine name as the second word of each line. I thought that was pretty cool too. So I don't think any of this is a coincidence. I really don't. We have to keep in mind, folks, that the Eternal One has an infinite mind far beyond anything that we can imagine. And I'm pretty sure, I can bet a lot that He saw this. He saw this. He knows the end from the beginning. He saw this. and it came out this way. I don't think it's a coincidence. I really don't. Now, I saved my favorite one for last, the best for last. This is my favorite one when it comes to the actual blessing. Now, I'm going to be honest, I did not come up with this myself because I read it in a commentary, and this blew my mind. It was pretty cool. So let's go to it. And by the way, I'm gonna go back and forth with the next slide because it may be a little hard for you to visualize this. So I'm gonna go back and forth with this slide and the following slide so that you can see what this is talking about. Now, the three middle words of the middle line, remember that there are three lines, right? You have 3 words, 5 words, and 7 words. The three middle words of the middle line, respectively, become, each of those words become the middle word of each line, And let me just go to the slide, the next slide. I'll take a moment because I know there's a lag here. Bob, okay, I think it just changed. This is what I'm talking about. Here's the middle line here. Here's the middle line. And the three words of the middle line, right? Yahweh, Panav, Elecha. These three middle words, respectively, becomes the middle of each line. And what I mean by that is that Yahweh becomes the middle word of the first line. Panav, of course, becomes the middle word of the second line because you have 2 words, Panav, and then you have 2 words, so that's the actual middle. And then Elecha becomes the middle word of the final line. You see that? So what we have here is a horizontal and a vertical intersection of these words. Right? And what that is to me, what I see here is that we know that when something is repeated twice is for emphasis, right? So we have Yahweh Panav Elecha, Yahweh Panav Elecha for emphasis, but it doesn't end there because we have the same thing here, Yahweh Panav Elecha. So we have like a superlative phenomenon because, as I shared before, when something is repeated 3 times, it communicates that superlative. The example that I have given in English is a very simple example. I always give it is fast, faster, fastest. Right? The fastest in the English language will be a superlative. It's the fastest. So in Hebrew, it's something similar to that. When something is repeated 3 times, it communicates strong emphasis. And that's what we have here in this last slide. I thought that was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. All right. So we have it once horizontally, the second time vertically, and then the third time horizontally again here on the third line, Yahweh Panav Elecha. Okay. And my dear friends and brothers and sisters, that is all that I have concerning the structures and the numbers. So I'm going to stop sharing now, Bob, and I would like to turn it over to you. Thank you for this opportunity to share.
Another thing I was looking at is you're showing that last bit that you sort of see the shape of those 5 words, 5 being the number of Torah, and again 5 being significant with the letters. That's the letter. The words of this portion are all based on the 5 times table. But you also see a symbol of the execution stake, or the symbol of the tav, the sign, the mark.
Yes.
So on top of that, I will put my name upon them, and I would when Shaul arrived in Tarsus, I would not preach anything to you but Messiah and Him crucified. So I don't know if I'm pushing it at all, but I see that symbol of the X, of the tav, of the execution stake within that.
Bob, let me just interject for the audience. Folks, keep in mind that when Bob says the Tav or the Tau, he is not referring to the Tav of the modern Ashuri script, the script that we're familiar with today. He's referring to what's called the Phoenician script that looks
Correct.
like an X. So if you were to look at the alphabet in the Phoenician script, or some people call it Paleo Hebrew, it does look like a cross, an X. And that's what Bob is referring to, not to the Tav, not to the last letter of the alphabet that's used today, which is really Aramaic square block or the Ashuri script. So,
Yes.
Bob, I wanted to make that clarification there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I was just excited and spouted off without
Yeah.
clarifying. The other thing that we see with that idea of a mark or a sign, I always love that portion in Ezekiel.
Ah, yes, yes. Put a tav on their foreheads, right, to identify them. Yes, yes.
Right.
I love that too. I like that. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interject
No,
there.
no. I'm just thinking where we go with that, what page that's on, but Tammuz.
I can do a quick search on BibleWorks if you wish, Bob. If you have
Yeah,
something.
I'd like to read that because that
Okay, let me do a quick search here on BibleWorks.
I'm always referring to that. Also, it's strange that I don't have that here. But essentially, Yah is about to exercise judgment upon the rebels, and they're going to destroy them. But before they do that, they single out those who are mourning, who are penitent, and they receive a mark
Yes.
for the destroyer.
Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 4. Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do we have what time is it? Do we have time for me to read that? It's
I
7.
have 8:17 here, Bob.
Were you going to share something else on top of
No,
that?
no, I'm done for today. Well,
That was
yes,
was
I'm finished with the teaching. Yes, yes, sir.
that was amazing. That's amazing. Okay, let me just read it from verse 1. Then he, Yahuwah, called out in my hearing with a loud voice, saying, "Let those who have charge over the city draw near, each with a deadly weapon in his hand." And suddenly 6 men came from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, each with his battle axe in his hand. And I'm reading the New King James here. One man among them was clothed with linen and had a writer's inkhorn at his side. They went in and stood beside the bronze altar. Now the glory of Elohim of Israel had gone up from the Cheruv, where it had been, to the threshold of the temple, the Beit HaMikdash. And he called to the man clothed with linen, who had the writer's inkhorn at his side. And Yahuwah said to him, "Go throughout the midst of the city, to the midst of Jerusalem, and put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and cry over all the abominations that are done within it." To the others he said in my hearing, "Go after him to the city and kill. Do not let your eyes spare, nor have any pity. Utterly slay the old and the young men, the maidens, the little children and women, but do not come near anyone upon whom is the mark. And begin at my sanctuary." Against judgment begins with the household of Yah, right?
Yes.
So they began with the elders who were before the temple. And he said to them, "Defile the temple and fill the courts with the slain. Go out." And they went out and killed in the city. But that's again, having the mark. We see that also referred to. People in the consider the book of Revelation, they think of the mark. They think of the mark of the beast. But the believer, instead of worrying, do I have the mark? Did I take the mark? How did I get the mark? You're not going to take the mark unless you know what you're doing, because you are rebelling against Yah, and there is no rebellion that is done by mistake. You're making an effort against him. So again, we obsess over the mark of the beast instead of realizing that there's a seal of the Ruach, which is essential for those who are his. We get this mark. Even Cain got the Tau after he had slain his brother, and Yah put the mark on his head. So I always love this portion of Ezekiel, because we receive that mark, that we're not content with the way the world is. We don't be comfortable with the way the world is. We stand out. We don't stand, lock and file with the rest of humanity. We stand out as distinct. We're a distinct people. We are peculiar. We are unique. As he is different, so are we different. As he is kadosh and set apart, so are we to be set apart and distinct. So anyway, I just think that was really beautiful. And I think that fits in with this. And again, so now you're really stretching things by seeing a quote unquote cross there. But it is the letter of the Tav, Alpha and the Omega, the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end. So the beginning, we're getting the blessing. And at the end, he comes and claims those that are his. And so we bear that mark. We bear that badge of honor to serve him. And that's beautiful. And I think that was really amazing how that comes together. It's almost like playing, what is it? Crossword puzzle. You have words
Yes.
across and diagonally. And it all fits. It all fits. And
yes, folks,
that's just like Yah.
Yes. Folks, I want to encourage you, when you're studying the Bible, of course, study it for personal edification. Look for what the Lord is speaking to you and trying to teach you and how he's guiding you. But after you do all of that and after you pray and you meditate and so on, go back, revisit the text and look for this. You're going to be surprised of the things that you find in the text.
Amen. And you're not going to get that in your English translation. So you need to have access to Greek and Hebrew. And again, are we expecting everyone to become fluent? No, I know that I'm not fluent. I'm not conversant. But I do know a lot more because I've taken that upon myself to study and to read and pronounce the words.
Yeah, Bob, I'm not fluent either. I'm not fluent in Hebrew. That's not my native language. My first language is Spanish. But I know enough to work with the text, and I'm grateful for that I can work with the text and understand the text. And that's all I need. I wish I can be really, really fluent, but who speaks classical Hebrew today? Nobody. Even if you go to Israel, you're gonna hear modern Israeli Hebrew. You're not gonna hear classical Hebrew spoken.
Especially since we're not sure how certain letters are pronounced, like the vav or the wow.
Yes.
But
still, even though I am not fluent in the language, I am familiar with it, and I can work with the text, and I'm super grateful for that. I don't take that for granted.
No, not at all. So again, we're here to help. If you find, don't be overwhelmed by these things. They're given to us so that we might know them. We might know Yah. Who is to know the Creator of the universe, and yet He knows our heart, and He'll respond to our heart, whether we're saying the right words or not, and we come to know Him. As the conclusion of the council in the book of Acts, chapter 15, it says, "Hey, you know what? We'll give them the basics, and week by week they go to the synagogue, they go and read the Torah, and they'll learn step by step. But start off with purification rules, about blood and strangled animals and fornication and such. This will identify you as being part of the community of the Kadoshim, the holy ones, the ones who are set apart. Otherwise, we're kind of just 6 of one, half dozen of another, and that's not how Yah identifies those who are his. He identifies those who follow after him and recognize him. And, a child can, just like with Dawid, it says, well, who is his father? Look at the character. Look who is his father? So by the father, we have that unique connection that we can be identified by who our father is. That as Messiah said in Matthew 5, he says, we do works to be seen of Yah, and that people will see them and they'll give him praise because of our connection with him. And Messiah says they will know us by the fact that we love each other and we're willing to be there for each other, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's all about love. Loving Yah, for the first and greatest of all commandments, is to love Yah with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second, which is like it, is to love our neighbors ourselves. Upon these two, all Torah is suspended, and it's a distillation of a principle. It's not, well, I guess there's only 2 commandments now. Well, no, it's a distillation. Just like it's also said that by loving our neighbor, we fulfill the Torah. So again, it's all about love. Those who want to divide law from love are separating 2 things that are not meant to be separated. Whom Yah has put together, let no one try to tear apart. And yes, sir.
Bob, it's funny that you should mention that to love Yahweh with all your heart and love your neighbor kind of encapsulates the Torah, right? It's the foundation. Believe it or not, the Aaronic benediction encapsulates all of the blessings that are found in Leviticus and in Deuteronomy in the so-called blessings and curses chapters. We see an encapsulation of all of those blessings in the Birkat Kohanim.
Yes.
So just like the to love Yahweh with all your heart and so on encapsulates, so the Birkat encapsulates. It's a foundation. Yeah.
So how important is it to get a grasp upon this portion of Scripture? It's pretty important. Pretty important. It's like the what is the decipherable stone? What is that? It's the
What, the Rosetta Stone?
The Rosetta Stone. It's like the Rosetta Stone. Through it, we can see through everything else. Once we get that decoded, we can apply it. Now, whoa, that's what that means. That's what this means.
Yeah, well, you see, Bob, you're right. And this is the reason why I spend so much time in the introductory material before getting into the actual text, because the actual blessing is so important that it's vital that you get the preface, that you get the introductory stuff. It's vital. And I hope, Lord willing, that we can get into the actual text next week.
Amen. Amen. And brother, you hit it out of the ballpark tonight with all the references, and those last few bits were especially amazing, and it's just great.
Thank you.
Great stuff.
May the Eternal One be honored.
Amen. And again, as I mentioned, as you touched upon that, again, that stairway, that ziggurat.
Yes.
As Yaakov looked and he saw ziggurat, and he saw Yah at the top, and that was where he is. He's at the top, and he brings the word down to us. He blesses us. He kneels to us. The loving, compassionate King who is willing to truly condescend to us, to bring to us, and we bow before him. And it's a mutual gesture of honor and respect, that he respects us also, like we saw in Psalm 139, that we in the creation of man, he bows to the details. He bows himself to perfect what he's doing. He doesn't take it for granted. When the creation in Bereshit says, let us make Adam in our image and likeness, like us. So whereas the animals were created according to their kind, we were created in the kind of Yahweh. So that's why this is our purpose, to understand Yah. That's why people are paying psychologists and psychiatrists and joining all these ethnically pure groups, trying to discover who they are. Where is their place in the universe? And they divide and they make things worse. There's more strife today than there's been in years. It's crazy. But Yah wants us to come together. Come unto me. Come unto me. We all should join him. And ultimately, all of Israel will come together again. And it'll be an amazing event that, again, unparalleled. And the whole system, it will change in that moment. So good. And again, let us know. Send us your comments. Let us know what you're thinking. And we will certainly do our best to respond and answer to you. And again, with our subjects, this is an important portion, but we also are discussing what comes later, what comes after, And we got a lot of things. But if you got something in your heart and on your mind, let us know what you'd like us to undertake and to tackle, and we'll do our best and put ourselves to it. And but you can see how this is such an important subject right now. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're taking our time for good reason, and we might we probably have another 4 weeks to do this, and we want to take our time. We want to take the scenic route because there's a lot to see, a lot to understand, not just to see, but to hear, to shema, to understand, to comprehend, and he's got a lot of things to teach us. He really does. So we need to be faithful to him, and be where he would reach us. And we thank you for joining us, whether we're your primary source or whether it's secondary or even third source, or just somebody that you pop in every so often. Please continue to do so. We're not trying to steal you from your flock. But we do suggest that you come out from among those who are not teaching truth. We're there to create, some kind of a social gathering, minus the true meat of the word, and that's what we're endeavoring to do each week. And we thank you for joining us. And amen. Any comments to close it out, Herman?
No, I'm just grateful for today, and I'm looking forward to next week where we can actually get into the text. Yeah, yeah, and extract like the juice extractor. We're extracting from the text all the spiritual vitamins and minerals that we need for our souls. So yeah,
Lots
that's
of
what
hope.
we're doing.
Lots of hope.
Yeah, we're extracting that. That's why it takes a while. It takes a while. We need to extract all of this, and
Yes.
may the Lord be glorified.
Amen. Amen. Thank you again. Patricia? Yes, Patricia, would you please do us the honor of the final closing prayer, please?
Yes.
All right.
Our Father, in the name of what we praise you for who you are. We thank you that we have come together this Wednesday night to meet online. And we thank you that we have the freedom to do so. Blessing and this time to watch over us, keep us safe, protect our going out, our coming in. Give us strength this day to do what you would have us do. I pray that your will would be done in each of our lives. To Yeshua be your glory, honor, and praise. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Gilbert. And thank you, Herman,
You're welcome.
for making this a memorable evening. And we say, Laila Tov ulehitraot to you. Oh, let me get this. Hadassah, 8 souls passed through the flood to new generated earth. There was Noah and the 8th person who stepped out into the new earth to commence a new order of things. Colossians 2:11. The Bible study. Amen. Hadassah, thank you so much for joining us and being there with us. Thank you.
Yeah. I think she wanted to focus on the number 8 there because there were 8 souls and a new beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. Number 8. And even sideways, it's the symbol of eternity, the number 8.
Infinity, right.
Amen. So again, we say Laila Tov ulehitraot. We say good night, and we will check you out later on down the road. And again, join us this coming Shabbat at 11. And Yah willing, we will be here next Wednesday evening at 7:30. And we say Laila Tov. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Amen.